When you're in the eating disorder, you think you have full control over your eating and your behaviors, but when in reality, the eating disorder has complete control over you. Even when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see that I was wasting away.
Anna's battle with food nearly destroyed her. It was a mind-body struggle which had almost nothing to do with food. Eating disorders, the love-hate relationship with food and yourself. This week on My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it. To most people, food is one of the great pleasures in their life. But to people with an eating disorder, food can be their worst enemy in a complex physical and emotional relationship that can have tragic consequences. It is estimated in the United States alone that over 20 million women and 10 million men will suffer from a clinically significant eating disorder in their life. This is a problem that was once thought to be confined to adolescent girls, but that is far from the truth. While American girls and young women do make up the overwhelming majority of sufferers, the problem has grown to encompass both genders, all ages and ethnic groups. Eating disorders do not discriminate, and they are very difficult to conquer.
Whereas most people have an idea of what an eating disorder looks like, an eating disorder doesn't have a look. Eating disorders don't have a number, they don't have a size, they transcend age and race and gender. So realistically, they transcend all boundaries. And it's so important for people to start to realize that, because 2/3 of people struggling with eating disorders aren't designated as being clinically underweight. So being able to start to identify the things that do stand out and realize that it doesn't have a specific look is so important to getting individuals the help they need.
Today, my colleague, Elizabeth Atkins, speaks with Anna Kilar, who shares her personal struggle and ultimate triumph over a life-threatening eating disorder.
Anna, welcome to My Healthy Mind.
Hi.
Can we get started by hearing about your background, your family life, where you grew up, school, sports, just a quick snapshot?
Yeah, so I grew up in Northville, Michigan, small town outside Ann Arbor. I grew up with my mom, my dad, and my younger brother, and we were always like a very close-knit family. We went on a lot of vacations and just did a lot together. In high school, I got into running, and I was a cross-country runner, and then went away to Loyola University of Chicago for school.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your eating disorder. How old were you when it started to develop, and what were the first signs?
Yeah, so the first signs I saw of my eating disorder, I was around 18. It was the second semester of college. My first semester had gone really well, and I was hardly homesick. I think I was just excited to be away from family and be in Chicago. And then second semester came around, and I decided to make a New Year's resolution to try to eat healthier, just add a couple more fruits and vegetables into my diet. And that sort of turned into a very unhealthy habit, and something that had started off so innocently slowly spiraled out of control to where I was losing a lot of weight really fast and counting calories and watching my weight.
So what were you feeling as all this was happening? What inspired you to put the focus on food?
I think just as, again, it was started off very innocently. I wasn't trying to lose weight. I wasn't trying to do anything other than eat a bit healthier and try to better my lifestyle. So again, I wasn't really aware of what I was doing to my body as I started to take out foods from my diet. Because during this time I was also feeling really homesick. I was sad. I was confused. And so I think I took that stress out on food and the certain behaviors that go along with an eating disorder.
So Anna, why do you think you developed an eating disorder? What were you feeling at the time?
I think I developed an eating disorder for a number of different reasons. I think there's a mixture of biological, social, and environmental factors that play into it. Definitely one of them is the cultural and the beauty ideals that we see in media, magazines, advertisements that are unrealistic. But I also think there's those biological reasons too. Something inside of you is just waiting for the trigger to be pulled. And I think part of it too is that I have a very type A personality, and I like to have control of all aspects of my life. And when you're in the eating disorder, you think you have full control over your eating and your behaviors, but when in reality, the eating disorder has complete control over you.
What does that feel like? Is it talking to you? Is it telling you what to do?
It's essentially another voice inside your head that, pretends to be your best friend and is telling you to do all these things and that, everything's going great, everything's perfect.
So when you looked in the mirror, what did you see?
I saw my normal self and, my normal body that I've always known. I didn't recognize that I was slowly doing a lot of damage to my body because the eating disorder, again, told me that I looked fine. You're fine if you lose a couple more pounds. You can keep going. So to me, when I was looking at was something deceiving and what I thought was normal.
So you didn't think there was a problem? Mm-mm. So did you ever try to reach out for help and talk to someone?
Yeah, so I didn't realize anything was wrong eating disorder-wise, but I knew that I was feeling a lot more homesick and sad and lost than I had ever felt. So I did go to the wellness center to do just, a regular counseling appointment. And part of their program there at the wellness center is everyone sees a nurse practitioner. So I was sent to her, and she did, my EKG and my blood pressure, and immediately sent me to the hospital when she saw those results. And she told me that I was going because I was dehydrated and malnourished. And
so talk to us about how you related to food in the hospital when they wanted you to eat.
So in the hospital, they would bring me, my average 3 meals a day, and I wouldn't touch any of it, maybe a couple things here or there, but, and they kept asking me, why aren't you eating your meals? What's going on? And I just nonchalantly brushed it off, being like, well, I don't want it, But essentially it was me still following my eating disorder's rules and still obeying the way it wanted me to eat. And I wasn't aware of that. But then I think once my mom was in the hospital with me, seeing me engage in these behaviors, it clicked with her. And then that's when on the last day, her and the psychiatrist came in with me and sat me down and told me that I was diagnosed with anorexia.
And what was your reaction?
I immediately burst into tears because I couldn't believe that this was happening. I didn't understand it. I was confused.
In hindsight, isn't that hard to understand that you didn't see what everyone else saw so clearly?
Yeah, it's extremely scary because looking back to, pictures of myself or looking back or thinking as to how I felt during that time, it was such a dangerous place that I had gotten myself into. And it just goes to show how strong eating disorders can be and how blinding they can be to someone who's affected by them.
A clinical eating disorder is a health crisis that disrupts personal and family functioning. When we return, we'll learn more about how eating disorders can completely take over the life of the sufferers and their families.
I didn't want people questioning why I was being so withdrawn or, not engaging in a conversation or laughing.
My job was causing me so much stress.
I felt disconnected and frightened.
I felt so isolated.
I was beginning to feel trapped, depressed. I never expected that to happen to me.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel, but that is so untrue.
It's good to be able to talk about it.
I was able to seek help. I found it from Team Wellness.
It's a sense of freedom.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
It's so important to better understand eating disorders and everything that goes with it, because eating disorders take the lives of young adults 12 times more than all other causes of mortality, including car accidents combined.
Today, our guest opens up about her battle with anorexia and what it took to overcome it.
So Anna, you were talking about how the eating disorder takes on a personality that's dominant. Can you explain that, please?
It's very hard to explain, but yeah, it takes over your personality, it takes over your identity, and kind of develops a mind of its own, and it takes you away from the things that you love to do. It withdraws you from your friends and your family. It just essentially turns you into a different person.
Mm-hmm. And how did you feel in the midst of that? Did you think you were in crisis?
I did not think I was in crisis. I thought that it was something normal because, again, my eating disorder was telling me that everything was perfect, everything was fine. And even when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see that I was wasting away.
And your family was here in Michigan, so they didn't understand the extreme condition that you had reached.
Right.
And your friends were trying to reach out to you, and what happened?
They didn't really know what to do, so they just tried to continue to be supportive when I was feeling really sad or really homesick, and just continue to try to be there for me.
And when you said it pulls you away from your family and friends, often food is the central focus of socializing, going out to eat, family dinners, holidays. So is that what you mean? It makes you kind of antisocial, not wanting to be around people?
Yeah, also, it's just so hard to focus on a conversation with your friends and family because you're so wrapped up with all these preoccupations that one might have with an eating disorder that you don't want to go out with them. For example, I remember a Relay for Life event that we had all been looking forward to. It was something that we had been planning for the whole semester. When we got there, I remember just trying to, fake a conversation, fake laugh with my friends. I was not engaged because I was so tied up in these preoccupations and these obsessions that were going on in my mind.
Anna, why did you feel that you had to be fake and put on a happy face when you didn't feel good?
I felt I had to be fake because, I didn't want people questioning why I was being so withdrawn or, not engaging in a conversation or laughing or, not eating the food that I was surrounded by. I just didn't want any of those questions.
So how did you avoid it?
By just removing myself from the situation. Again, with the Relay for Life event, I just ended up leaving and faking that I wasn't feeling good. Again, I was physically feeling awful, but saying my stomach hurt was a lie, and ended up leaving the event.
Mm-hmm. So your eating disorder gave you this sort of self-imposed isolation, and you withdrew from people. Tell us how that manifested. What happened?
Yeah, I just avoided most social situations that involved any type of social situation, whether there was food there or not, because it was still so hard to hold a conversation with friends, and I just couldn't bring myself to do those things because of all the preoccupations in my mind.
When we come back, we'll have more about eating disorders and Anna's struggle with food, a struggle between life and death. Please stay tuned.
At Team Wellness Dental Clinics, you'll find plenty to smile about. Our friendly professional dentists and hygienists are here to give you the full range of preventative and remedial care you need for a beautiful, lasting smile. From diagnostics to routine cleanings, our team does it all, right in your neighborhood. So whether you come to us or we come to you, you'll get the kind of dental care you need to keep smiling. Team Wellness Dental Clinics, now serving communities all over Metro Detroit.
Welcome to My Healthy Mind,
A show that dares to talk about mental health matters that touch nearly every family. Each week you'll meet guests who share their stories, hear from local experts, and learn about resources that may help.
And so I was in a committee meeting at the House of Representatives when I realized that my daughter had autism.
We need to take the stigma away from mental health issues.
No topics about mental health and wellness are off limits on our show.
Let's talk about it on My Healthy Mind.
So it is incredibly important for people to reach out. There's so many individuals whom I work with who have said that they wish in retrospect that more people had reached out to them so that they could have gotten help earlier than they did. The earlier the intervention is, the greater chance there is of a quicker, full recovery for the individual.
Welcome back to My Healthy Mind. We're looking into the struggle with eating disorders, why they're so difficult to identify and treat, and how to successfully gain control over them.
Anna, we've learned how everyday food can become very frightening, a monster for some people, and about the emotional anguish that accompanies these insidious disorders. So tell us how you began to get help and how you selected a recovery program that was best for you.
We did their intensive outpatient program, which was 3 days a week for half a day. And for me, what that consisted of was they would do 2 meals and group debriefings. But in the program, what I remember as being very helpful were we had like a nutrition session where we basically would learn the basics of nutrition, but underlying that we would learn that all food is fuel and that, you know, there's no good foods or bad foods. It's just food is fuel, and developing a healthy relationship with that.
Tell us about that, because your whole perspective was so overwhelmed by the eating disorder. Hearing something like food is fuel isn't something that you'd click and say, oh, right, okay, right? Were you resistant to that?
Yeah, I was very resistant to understanding that food was fuel, but I think for my parents, that was something that they said to me every day or multiple times a day. And then as I started gaining weight, you know, since your brain is so malnourished, it takes a while for like your decision making to catch up with you. And so as I was gaining weight, the more I was better able to understand what was going on with my body. And then learning about the Maudsley method, or FBT, I did not want any part in it. It scared me to have my parents take full control over everything, to have me treated like a child again. But I really didn't have a choice if I wanted to get back to doing the things that I loved. And so I continued to do it, and I think then as more I got through the programs and had other people there to be supportive, like the other people in the treatment program, and with my family's help, then I started to see a turnaround. And then that moment where I talked about looking at the scale, and something just clicked in me, and ever since then I became excited when I would see, you know, a new number on there, or I would, you know, make strides in my recovery.
And how long did it take from the moment you were hospitalized to feeling like you were really in your recovery?
I think during treatment, it wasn't necessarily easy, but with being in treatment, you have like the support of your team, also the other people in the program, and then your family is there. So during those roughly 2.5 months in treatment, I felt it was very, not easy is not the right word, but like I had a lot of support there. And then once I had gotten out of treatment, I felt invincible. It was like, I can do all this, I'm fine, I'm better, but it's a work in progress. Every day you still have to fight that voice, and it's just a battle that you have to keep continuing on with yourself every day.
Anna, I understand that writing in your journal has been a really helpful tool in recovering from your eating disorder. So you brought your journal with you today. Can you share some passages with us, please?
Yes, so I have a passage from my last day in treatment. I am so happy that I have hopefully made it through the toughest part of this journey. As I walked out of the hospital, I began to cry, knowing that would be my last time walking out of that hospital as a patient. I never saw myself in the beginning making it this far, but I am so happy to be here now, and there is so much to be thankful for in life. I know this isn't the end of the journey. I'm not fully weight restored, but I am up for this challenge.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Wellness Center has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan.
They get a chance to know that somebody's on their team.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel. We feel like I'm the only one. But that is so untrue.
Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery.
Working through my problems and seeing that I'm not the only one that has to cope has really brought me to a place where now it's okay to talk about it.
Because if you keep stuff to yourself, you can't overcome. We all need one another.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
Eating disorders are absolutely difficult to treat because a lot of individuals who are struggling don't think that anything is wrong. They think they're being told by the eating disorder that listening to the eating disorder is what's right, that the eating disorder is their ally and everyone else is against them. And because of what happens physically to their brains during the process of the eating disorder, it becomes almost impossible to parse that apart.
Though eating disorders are one of the toughest mental illnesses to treat, Anna has shown that it is possible for people with such disorders as anorexia, bulimia, and others to adopt healthy eating habits and to even enjoy eating again.
Anna, can you tell us how you made peace with the fact that you went through this whole crisis with an eating disorder?
I think the biggest part is that I had to stop being angry with myself at putting myself in the situation, because eating disorders are not choices. They're not something that you choose to engage in, which I think is a big stigma. People think that it's just for attention, when really it's a mental illness and you don't choose to go down this path. There's so much unknown about this horrible disease that I just want other people to know that they're not alone and that they can share their story too, and that recovery is possible. And then there's also making peace with yourself and your body. So for me, it was just learning that, this is the body that I was given and I should learn to love it, because it has allowed me to run marathons and it's allowed me to engage in so many activities. It allowed me to move to New York and move to Chicago. So I think realizing what it can do for you is a big part of coming to peace with it.
And how do you come to peace with the food?
I think coming to peace with the food comes with silencing that eating disorder voice. Because once you are able to silence that voice, food becomes amazing again. And it's something that you're like, oh, let's go try this new ice cream shop.
Your triumph over your eating disorder has meant more than getting your mental and physical health back. It's meant getting your family, your friends, and your life back. So how do you maintain?
I think maintaining is just all about balance, balancing your work life, academics, social life, and family. I think the eating disorder, I would not wish it upon my worst enemy, but for me, it has made me a lot more stronger. It's made me so much more outgoing than I already was, and I think that is because I've seen how deep I got myself into, and then I saw how strong I was able to pull myself out of that. So now I think it's really important to surround yourself with a great support system, and I have amazing friends and family who will be there for me if I ever have something come up where I need to talk to them or debrief or remove myself from a situation.
Can you talk about their role and how they helped you so dramatically?
Yeah, I think I would not be where I am today without my family, especially my parents, because FBT is so family focused. I think they're the ones that pushed me through recovery. They ended up turning their lives upside down for me. They spent hours researching insurance and treatment options and taking time off of work so that both of them could be there for meals. Also for my brother, he was about 15 or 16, and I knew he was very confused about it all. He couldn't understand this complex disorder, but he was still very supportive in any way he could be. You know, if I was in the middle of a meal and my parents and I were all screaming at each other, he would take a little piece of paper and like write down a note and slip it to me across the table or something, and it would just be like, "You are so strong, like you got this," or "Food is your fuel," just simple things like that, to where I knew that, you know, he was on my side, and that, you know, just that little reminder that I could do it.
So tell us how you feel today about your life and about yourself.
I think I felt better than I ever have, and I think that's because I've gone through this, and then I've been able to make peace with the eating disorder in my body, and I never would have gone for certain opportunities if I hadn't gone through this eating disorder, because it showed me just what I'm capable of doing, and it's just helped me remind myself that like I have self-worth, and that the eating disorder can't tell me otherwise.
Elizabeth, what an inspiring story. We take food for granted, and I don't think I'll ever look at food the same again.
For people who struggle with it, food can almost take on a life of its own. But Anna is not a victim, she's a victor, and she's proof that with the right treatment, eating disorders can be overcome. To help you on your quest for mental wellness, we've put information and listed resources on our website, myhealthymind.com. Please take a look. Visiting myhealthymind.com could be an excellent first step in reestablishing a healthy relationship with eating.
We'd also like to hear from you about topics you'd like us to discuss, the tough topics, because we know that talking about them openly is so important to removing the barriers on the path to well-being. You can reach us on our website at myhealthymind.com, on Twitter at myhealthymind, or on Facebook.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it.